Ed O'Keefe is a reporter with the Washington Post. He's in Washington. All right, so Ed, the two top Republicans in Congress now say they support investigating possible Russian attacks to influence the election. What does this actually look like over the next few months?
Well, we'll see, because that's still up for debate, Elaine. Democrats calling for a broader and more public investigation that might be done by a joint House and Senate committee, maybe even a special independent commission similar to the 9/11 Commission or the Iraq Study Group. For now, Mitch McConnell in the Senate and Paul Ryan in the House are saying no. The intelligence committees can handle this. That's what they're there for. They will handle these investigations. I'll be curious to see whether Republicans like John McCain and Lindsey Graham in the Senate, others in the House perhaps call for a bigger and more public investigation. Democrats certainly will ask for that, saying that any final report has to be released publicly, at least in some way, so that there can be accountability and a better understanding of what exactly Russia was doing and why they wanted to do it.
I'm curious, Ed, do you think there is any concern among Republicans in Congress about the appearance of defying the president-elect, given that Mr. Trump has basically ridiculed the intelligence community's findings?
Oh, this is an absolutely uncomfortable situation for Republicans, no matter which way you slice it, because they're either going to be seen as perhaps trying to cover something up that Russia may have done, or putting themselves at odds with a president who's been known to fire off criticisms either on the air or on Twitter and has no problem ridiculing and hanging out to dry members of his own party. So there's big risk here. But I think the fact that you've seen John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell in the Senate, Paul Ryan and assorted members over in the House who have experience with national security say that at least in general they have concerns about Russian and other foreign interference in U.S. elections, and that broad issue needs to be investigated, gives them enough leeway for now. The trick will be if it ever gets into the idea that perhaps Russia was doing this for Trump's benefit. There has been some assessments that that is exactly what they were doing. Obviously, that's in dispute. We know from reporting of my colleagues that McConnell himself disputed those assertions by intelligence experts in a closed-door briefing earlier this fall, and we'll see whether any investigation done by Republican-led intelligence committees in both chambers of Congress ever allow that conclusion to be further investigated. That's part of why Democrats and eventually probably some Republicans are going to want this to be done in public, so that those kinds of questions can be raised and answered, not necessarily behind closed doors.
Yeah, a lot of public interest in this. Ed, on another topic here, we're also seeing some Republicans raise questions about Donald Trump's likely pick for Secretary of State, ExxonMobil Chairman and CEO Rex Tillerson. Are you expecting a battle over that confirmation?
Well, we're already seeing it, most notably among Republicans. Again, you see at least 3 members of the Foreign Relations Committee saying that they have doubts about the idea of nominating an oil executive with close ties to Vladimir Putin, who's won an award from Putin for work done in Russia, plus John McCain, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, raising doubts about the idea of that. 4 Republicans saying no, plus all 48 Democrats conceivably, is enough to block Tillerson from getting confirmed. So already there are danger signs without any Democrat expressing opposition to him. You got to get 51 in the Senate. If 4 of the 52 Republicans are already saying they have issues with it, you do the math, that's not enough to get confirmed. So that's, I think, why we may have seen initially that Tillerson was the pick, but very quickly saw that Republican concern expressed, and why now the Trump folks, at least, are saying no decision has been made. We'll see if Trump wants to pick a fight. If he does, he may be picking it mostly with members of his own party, and that's not exactly the way the Trump administration wants to begin.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Also, I want to ask you, Ed, about Mr. Trump suggesting this weekend that he would not be bound by the long-held one China policy, and said that he might use adherence to the policy as a quote-unquote bargaining chip, prompting this response from the White House. Take a listen.
The Obama administration does not view Taiwan and our relationship with Taiwan as a bargaining chip. Taiwan is not a source of leverage. It's a close partner of the United States.
All right, so Ed, we heard from Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary there. I wonder if you can explain what kind of obligation is the Obama administration balancing here in its final days, as Donald Trump seems to be plotting a different course on foreign policy.
You know, the president himself has been very quiet on what Trump has said and done so far. He's expressed sort of general concern that the next president has to be a uniter and not a divider. He's talked a lot about his own legacy in several different exit interviews. But it is on foreign policy, it seems, that the White House has spoken out most actively. They're still in charge, and concerns with the U.S.-China relationship are paramount right now, and always front of mind for whatever administration is in office. I think this is the part of the Trump presidency we know the least about. How is he going to comport himself when it comes to world leaders? And it's the part that really concerns a lot of members of both parties, whether they're in Congress, whether they're out of office, whether they're private citizens and just experts on all this stuff, because they realize that, they realize, and I think their concern is that Trump doesn't realize, that what a U.S. president says has consequences around the world that can really affect relationships. So I think what we're seeing the Obama administration do is continue to express official foreign policy and make clear to the world that there's still one president and this is how he believes, and signaling to the Trump team, you got to be careful on how you discuss these things because they could have real-world consequences. And it is notable that days after defending Taiwan and its democracy and saying that they were going to show great respect to Taiwan because they have a democratically elected leader, Trump then turns around and calls them a bargaining chip in a broader relationship with China. I think that's also what the White House was getting at is, hold on a second, Taiwan is a partner, China is a partner, we handle these things differently, but they have to be treated with seriousness and respect. It's going to be tricky for the current White House to deal with the occupant of the future White House in these closing weeks.
Yeah, and as you noted, Ed, so many open questions when it comes to foreign policy, especially with this incoming administration. Ed O'Keefe in Washington for us. Ed, thanks so much.
Take care, Elaine.